They don't acknowledge that they're appealing to tradition. And most times, the people who are refuting universal reconciliation hold to the idea of sola scriptura, scripture alone. So if scripture alone is what you stand on, then it kind of doesn't make sense for you to appeal to tradition. One thing that people bring up in opposition to my stance on the doctrine of Apokotastasis, universal restoration, reconciliation, is funny because they make an appeal to tradition, right? They make an appeal to the church council, specifically the Fifth Ecumenical Council that deemed Origen heretical in his view of universal restoration. Now, first, that is debated, right? Biblical scholars and theologians debate if that's really how that took place. But the other thing that's interesting about it is that, Justinian was the emperor of the Eastern Empire of Rome. And he's the one that called together this ecumenical council. That is the only time that has happened up until this point. It was all the Pope. Only the Pope had called these councils to figure out theological issues. Now you have an emperor who's calling the council in the Fifth Ecumenical Council. And so that is, preposterous because you can see the political nature of how, theology starts to get used as a tool. But that's not my main point. My main point is usually people who start to say, well, Origen was condemned as a heretic at this council, they don't acknowledge that they're appealing to tradition. And most times, the people who are refuting universal reconciliation hold to the idea of sola scriptura, scripture alone. So if scripture alone is what you stand on, then it kind of doesn't make sense for you to appeal to tradition. It doesn't make sense for you to appeal to the church fathers. Because if you start appealing to the church fathers and tradition, you're going to lose that argument because they hold firmly the idea of apokotastasis and universal restoration. And I could go quote after quote after quote after quote from men like Origen, Gregory of Nyssa, Gregory of Nazianzen, Irenaeus, Clement of Rome, Clement of Alexandria, the other Cappadocian fathers, all the patristic fathers. So you begin to lose ground on defending eternal conscious torment. And when you do sola scriptura, when you do scripture alone, when you start to read the text in the original Koine Greek with the proper translations and the proper context, you don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to eternal conscious torment. It just doesn't add up. Universal restoration is the view that Scripture has a through line from beginning to end, saying that God is going to redeem all, that hell is a place of refinement, not a place of torture.